Salvete mihi nomen est, Stella, ad hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 257 for February MMXXV. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by Mile High Comics, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So, if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. When last we spoke, just one on one, you remember that many hopes and dreams were on the line for the Buffalo Bills, who are entering the AFC championship game against the Chiefs for, I think, the fourth time. And unfortunately, for the fourth time, the Bills lost. And I was very heartbroken. Come Monday, I was just in a depressed state, kind of subdued. An administrator came up and said, "You seem kind of sad. Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just sad about the game." Um, yes, I guess the balm is that the Eagles just completely destroyed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But I think because that's more like a passive win, I will say that I'm ever so happy that Josh Allen got the MVP. I really like Josh Allen. I think he's a great person, and I think he really deserved that. And I definitely, still support my Bills. I'm even wearing a Bills hoodie right now as I record. So we'll just try. We'll just try next year, which, you know, some things like, if somebody dies and you say like they're in a better place, we can understand the intent behind that, but I feel like there's little comfort for it. So I, try not to use those sorts of things. And so some people that had known were like, well, there's always next year. And I'm just like, that's a whole season away. We're still suffering here, which perhaps I shouldn't equate death with the loss of the bills. But that's sort of what I think with when someone's trying to comfort, and those are the words that they offer me. And then exciting news is that I started taking Italian and found a place that's not too far away that offers weekly night lessons in Italian and lots of oral practice. Not as much grammar as I would like, because that's something, I mean, I guess as someone who loves English grammar and Latin grammar, and I strive to help my students understand both of those, that's something that really locks in the language for me. I'm hoping that we'll start to get to that, especially as we're using articles and things like that. But right now, yeah, lots of greetings. We just did the transition from formal to informal speech. And yeah, I think it's a bit of an introvert's nightmare to a certain extent, which I say that I am, because you have to he'll give you the professor will give you instructions like you need to talk to five people now, and you have the same conversation. But I appreciate all of that. Then we have some homework, and I'm kind of using Quizlet too, just to get down some vocabulary words. But we'll see how that goes. Yeah, this is just Italian 101. And the idea is that if I start now, then maybe in a couple years' time, when I'm taking students back to Europe, if we end up going to Italy, because we're going to Greece in March, then maybe I'll be somewhat fluent. But I've always wanted to learn Italian. Each time I go back to Italy, there's like resurgence of the desire to learn it. So now I'm actually sitting down and doing it. So I'm excited about that. Well, yeah, this was another month where I am just kind of hitting podcasting fatigue. And I've had, I guess, four four of them, or there will be four of them in total. And so again, we're just not reaching a time where I can do the vintage, and I just basically barely had time to do the modern stuff. So we're just doing the modern Batgirl and the modern Birds of Prey, and hopefully maybe next month is the month that I get back and start doing the vintage, so that I'm not just stuck where I am and I completely forget what has happened. So, yes, we're going to cover Batgirl Volume 6, number 4, first of all. And this is Mother Part 4 of 6, writer Tate Bromble, artist Takeshi Miyazawa, inker for pages 1 through 10, Wayne Foucher. A surprise attack changes everything as Batgirl grapples with the unlikely allies Lady Shiva has assembled to combat the Unburied. A surprise attack derails their burgeoning plans, pun intended. Suddenly, it's all out war with Cassandra Cain caught in the middle of the deadliest hands in the DC universe. Will she stand and fight alongside the enemies of her enemy, or will she take them all on herself? So I will say that I very much enjoyed this cover. I love purple just in general, but also the purple is nicely reminiscent of Spoiler and Battle Damaged Cass. It looks like there's some sort of shrapnel in her wrist. Not sure how she's um, managing that. Oh, no, never mind. It's peeking through the space between her shoulder and her wrist to see the purple. But yeah, I do love battle damaged characters. Though this is, again, with the mask off, I just feel like you are giving false advertising to what goes on. And just having Cass remove her mask is, I think, something that is out of character. But overall, a pretty cool cover. I am surprised that Bromble is willing to bring up Cass's villain arc by mentioning in a little editorial box, though technically it says Jess did this, way back in 148 when Cass supposedly killed Nissa all those years ago. And it just seems like Bromble is willing to invoke the ire of readers by talking about that villain arc or her time as a villain, which I know people did not like at all. I will say, I mean, even scanning through, I don't have too much to say about this, but it is exposition heavy. And I think this was one of my issues with the previous issue. This is the drawback, I think, of a 6 issue arc or story. You have to fill in that space, and either you decided you want it to be 6 issues, and now you've got to deal with that, or you marked it out in advance. But it's like if there's a lot of conversation happening in 2 issues in a row, I'm thinking maybe you mismanaged the time or the space allotment, and you could have done something else. At this point, I am actually starting to get annoyed at Cassandra, and I'll just go back to this in particular because for the 4th issue, really in a row, Cass is just rushing in to fight and go after people rather than stopping, pausing, listening, because she's being repeatedly told over and over again the same thing, and yet like she's refusing to listen, which is really interesting. Like I didn't recognize that she was this stubborn. I feel like maybe sit back, pause, and analyze is more of what I imagined her doing. I could take maybe 1 or 2 times, but for 4 issues in a row, it's a bit too much. And I did reach out to Donovan and just wondered, would you say that this is something that would happen? And he said, let's see here. She's not been the wisest Batgirl this run, but I do think it's in character. And he did say that I don't disagree. By issue 4, Cass's distrust feels repetitive, but by the end of the issue, I feel it's turning, which I do see that as well. So it better not happen in issue 5 because then I'll be really confused as to why that has happened after this particular moment, which I thought was pretty poignant, where she and her mother have another, I don't know, heart to heart. But in this case, I think Cass is actually listening and willing to listen. And Shiva, I think to a certain extent, lays down the ego, the pride, and actually talks to her emotionally, which I appreciated. And I think she does, in fact, even apologize. And I think that this, to a certain extent, gets to Cass, or at least Cass is considering these words finally. And this is interesting just because I had Sam Heath, who has been on this show, come and talk at my school's collection about his work with EJUSA, which is an organization that is working to end the death penalty. And he was talking about restorative justice and this idea of forgiveness and can you work together, and can the victims forgive the people who have really sinned against them. And I think this is an example of that. It's possible, but it's not easy, and lots of good discussions have been happening at school post that. But I was just thinking that, oh, this is really apropos given what has been going on at school. I am surprised that well, I will say that this is a bit odd that they thought that, I don't know, were they just looking for a respite? Because clearly you would see people run away into this train car. And so it's not really surprising that they're found, but maybe they just needed time to lick their wounds, figuratively as well as literally, since she did put that flower on there. But I am surprised that Cass leaves in the end, given JS says, forget the others. And this was the main issue that Cass had leaving in issue 2, leaving Gotham City. Is that correct? And yeah, I don't think it was as early as 1. It might have been, but the other thing is, just forget the others, leave them behind. And that wasn't her MO then. Why is it now? I guess that heart to heart really did make a turning point. Not exactly sure what's going on with Nissa right here in this panel. She says the one who is all, the one who was promised, and it looks like she's angry either at the situation or at Cass, but then it's just like Cass jumps on and then goes away. So I can't tell exactly what's about to happen unless Nissa thought everyone else is gone. So now's my time to enact my revenge against Cass. Who knows? I am going to give this 8 out of 10 mother daughter spats. So I would say a pretty significant drop off from the previous issue, which was a 10 out of 10, because of the exposition, because of the repetitive nature of it. And really, I think just a couple moments being really important in pushing forward, and maybe just the mother daughter moment being that I almost want to give it a 7.5, to be honest. That might be more appropriate. So here's hoping we get back. We have 2 issues left, so we need to ditch the exposition and like push the story forward, please. Enough's enough. Okay, and now I will move on to Birds of Prey. This is volume 5, number 18, Divide and Conquer. Writer Kelly Thompson, artist Juan, hope it's not Juan, Cobble, and colorist Adriano Lucas. When Oracle intercepts chatter about Sin from the Ninja Clan, long bent on acquiring her, Dinah, Sin, and Megara decide to set a trap instead of waiting for an ambush. Meanwhile, Constantine reaches out to Oracle for last minute help, moving a tricky demon across a dimensional plane. But Oracle only has a skeleton crew of Big Barda and Cass Kane on hand, and they might not be the best fit for this particular mission. And I will say that I don't know that I'll be able to do this particular cover. Yeah, it's a bummer, but this cover is actually a wraparound, which you'll be able to see on the cover for this episode. And I really like this. I will say I was staring at Dinah's hairline here, and it just seems like the blending didn't happen as well as it could have, because it literally looks like you drew the hair and then sort of photoshopped a face on there, or she's wearing someone else's face, a la Mission Impossible. But yeah, I wish I could show the other side, but I love how Barbara is front and center, even though she's the one that happens to be divided by the 2 cover bind. And yeah, I mean, they all look rather attractive, which I guess that's the Birds of Prey, isn't it? I loved this issue. I think I could probably go through just each particular page and talk about it. I love that Sin and Dinah are getting some screen time together, and Sin actually has more of a purpose because that was her arc in the beginning, and then she was basically sidelined for a significant period of time. So it's nice to see them sparring here and later on when they're together on this mission. I think that is great. I love the comedy and really the balance, I think, between comedy, levity, I guess I'll say, and seriousness that Thompson is able to accomplish here. That Babs is annoyed that they're so loud, especially when you have like superhumans and saying, I might have to move my watchtower or the sparring area because it's difficult for her to work. And she can overlook what's happening there. And then we move on, and maybe the best part of this particular issue is just Cassandra Cain and Barda. And here they are playing video games. We see that Batgirl 2, which I really appreciate that she is Batgirl 2, which is probably something that you would see on, yeah, any, I guess, what, Who's Who, wouldn't it be Batgirl 2? And though I wonder if that's necessarily true, literally, it's not true. But if we think about publication history, I think that it is more true. And just that Barda losing and not great. Barta's saying you can't read my body language when it's a video game, and Cass saying, well, it must be. So they're going again, and then Batgirl is saying, oh, I'm happy to beat you again. And Barta not throwing the controller at the TV, but actually grabbing Cass's controller and crushing it, saying, how about now? And poor a forlorn look on Cass's face, saying, yeah, it will be harder now. And so here we have the meeting. People comfort sin. Seems like it's interesting how it is laid out with the pairs, like it's almost foreshadowing what's about to happen, that'll be divided up rather than people sitting on the couch. But I also think in terms of characteristics and personality, that the people standing and the people sitting are the ones most likely to do that particular physical feat. And it's great that Barda is a bit miffed that she cannot go on this particular mission. Oh, so you do not want Big Barda? Dinah tries to equivocate and says, that's not, they do not want a small bat. Their mistake, of course. I hope they will not come to regret it. And then they leave. And Sin says, I sort of already do. And Barda is dragging Cass away, saying, perhaps we will make our own mission, small bat. Are we not the masters of our own destinies? And then Cass says, I think Oracle is actually the master of our destinies, which is really fun and an interesting comment. And this goes back to something that Donovan had said before, that who's the leader of this team? And so it seems like it's Dinah. However, that remark, maybe everyone knows that Oracle is, the person in the chair and really the person that's behind everything, since she's mission control. So I did appreciate that, but there's a lot being said in that particular panel. So setting up the mission, and then Constantine pops in with another mission. So I will say, like, this entire issue, I think, feels like classic Birds of Prey, where Oracle is mission control, where you have a smaller team now, and then multiple things might be happening, and you got to split them up and figure out who's going to do what. And in this case, Constantine has a mission that probably would have been better with maybe Dinah and Sin, or Cass could be good. I guess Dinah and Sin might be the best. But you've just got Barda and Cass, and even Constantine's face kind of blowing out breath and saying, hardly ideal for this, but beggars can't be choosers. Don't tell Barda I said that. I don't have time to wake up in a coma. I think probably because she's going to go in and just be a heavy hitter. And so they're going back to the scene. And then we have this scene, which is really, I think, thoughtful and interesting, where Dinah and Sin are talking about dinner, but they're using hand gestures to communicate that people are already there to take Sin out, which reminds me of the Bene Gesserit from Dune, and just that they have their own manual language. And as I was typing out from my notes the Bene Gesserit, I realized for the first time ever that that's two Latin words. I'm sure that it is intentional. I do wonder kind of their choice of definition for Gesserit. So from Gero, and it's a future perfect, so we'll have something. Gero can mean a bunch of different things. Wear, bear, carry, can also mean wage. And I guess we could maybe do. So we'll have done, and then bene is an adverb. So we'll have done well. But it's interesting that it's a third person. So maybe it will have done well. I don't know. And it's interesting also that it's not passive, like it will be well, something, or it will be done well. I don't know. I'd have to talk to the author to see what the intention was. But first time I'm noticing that that is Latin. And if you didn't know, now you know that as well. So, anyways, yes, I really like how they're using those gestures, and the safe house is used by, it looks like turning a jar of pickles, which everybody loves pickles. Not everyone, but I do love pickles. And we see that back in Mission Control, Barbara is watching everything, but she says this really dire quote. She says, "Oh, that's nice. I hope they get to at least finish their meal." Um, which I think when I first read it, I thought she said their final meal, but yeah, I think that they end up doing such a thing. The seam, you remember, it was rather funny with Harley Quinn trying to figure it out, and so Cass too is also showing her like confusion and maybe bewilderment and also wonder at how to get into the seam. And then they go right to it. And Cass is the one that is watching Constantine, who is now possessed by a demon. And Barda just, yeah, as she says, she goes to take care of the riffraff. And I like the organization of panels here, or at least how they're designed at an angle. And she just goes to it, which is great because they're mindless and she can have at it, which I know is fun for superpower beings. I know that Superman loves to not hold back when given the possibility. But now this is bad. It's one of those Hydra situations. So they're just being reconstituted. So now what do you do? And she is surrounded. But yes, she says, in that case, it is about to be very unfortunate for the lot of you that I am not at the lake house right now. So she is excited, I think, for the challenge. And then we have the ending is at the lake house. We have shadows looking in, and next up, Hells and hand baskets, which was one of my favorite like quotes is just turning to someone maybe and saying, um, yeah, where are we going and why are we in this handbasket? I find that to be amusing, but not everyone understands that particular phrase. So if you say that, I think it has to be generational. Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10. I thought that it was really good. I thought it was really fun. There's a book that says The Art of Ambush. Just like right there, ostentatiously. I didn't notice that my first read through. I love the split and getting to focus on these two pairs of heroes. And again, Sin, I think, being brought back because right now she just, or up to now, she had seemed kind of useless. Like, why was she there? Cass and Barda, classic as always. And I just feel like Thompson was able to reinfuse excitement into the series because it kind of had been deteriorating a little bit. I guess that might be too harsh of a word. So I look forward to seeing what this is like. And I think this is kind of the tone that we're looking for, and also the types of missions and stuff that we see. And then Barbara, I think, filling an important role and getting to see her in that role as well. Though it'd be nice if she could step out. But perhaps that's just not the point of this particular series. So if Barbara is meant to be Oracle, then she should probably just stay Oracle, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Well, oh yeah. I do have one listener email, which was a comment on Batgirl the Oracle episode 255 from Donovan. He says that the picture Cass carries of the Bat family feels reminiscent of Wayne family adventures, which I have yet to read, and I really have no excuse for that because Donovan, in fact, got me, I think, the first two like oversized trades. So I really just need to sit down and read that. But I appreciate that comment. Thank you so much. And now on to Stella's Dungeon of Smut, which is brought to you by Hornisex Fried Calamari Sticks. And let's see here. Guess it'd be late January. So I found Julia Connors, and probably through a reel on Instagram. There's often a quote or a setup to a steamy scene, and I'm like, then usually if it's intriguing enough and kind of the byline is intriguing enough or the trope list, then I'll go and check it out. I am trying to think if I mentioned this. So center ice, one last shot, one little favor on the line. I gave them all really three 3 stars. I thought that they were okay. Cross-checked though by Julia Connors, I really liked. I gave that 4 stars, and that was a general manager and a player, which is kind of against the rules there. And it's definitely enemies to lovers, though there was like kind of heat in the past, but she was married previously, but he had a crush on her. And there's a bit of an age gap, and I do like reverse age gap. And um, there's a daughter. And he's a single dad. So it was a lot. I don't like the single parent tropes, single dad or single mom. But in this case, I very much enjoyed it. It was very heartwarming. And I think Connors uses really, she's a baby, she's like a toddler, to, I think, give insight into who AJ is, because otherwise she's just this really like badass boss and GM that the team loves, but who is she outside of that? And so I thought that that was used really well. So I do actually recommend that, even though I think it's like the fourth. So don't feel like you would, even though there are previous characters in there. I mean, give that a go just outside of it. And I think that's it that I would like strongly recommend. And then I have my literature recommendations. And I, for a book club, read Madame Restel, The Life, Death, and Resurrection of Old New York's Most Fabulous, Fearless, and Infamous Abortionist by Jennifer Wright. And I gave this 3 stars. This was for a book club, so it would not have been my first choice, to be honest. I did learn a lot. I didn't like the author, I guess, because I understood the author. And for me, I feel like that's a sin. When you're writing a memoir or a biography, I should not know who the author is. But she would like come in and give some sort of, I don't know, quick, witty thing or a commentary, or she would interject with maybe like a modern pop culture reference. And I thought, this is not the place. Could we just talk about whoever this woman is and kind of this historical time? So that was my greatest grievance against that, though people in the group, in the book club group, appreciated her barbs. So there you go. She makes her opinion very well known. So I mean, number one's about abortion. So I think your belief system and your political attitudes, you should probably make a good decision before reading that. But it was really interesting, at least medically, to figure out kind of the how all that came about, because I didn't realize a lot of that. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, really good, also very unsettling, also realistic, and um something that is, yeah, going on today with like Twitter cancellations and authors and bad behavior of authors, trying to go after other authors and hashtag own voices and the pros and cons of that. So it's just a relevant novel, so I highly recommend. And I just finished You Exist Too Much by Zaina Arafat, Palestinian American author. So if you want to support someone of that particular demographic, I think check that out. My school did, one of the librarians did Date with a Book, and they wrapped up books so you couldn't see, but then gave explanations in like a heart and a number, just like little bylines. So I think that said feminist and LGBTQIA plus and female characters. Yeah, I can't remember them. So I thought, oh, well, this is interesting. I'll take this. And then I took another one that was post-apocalyptic and aliens and YA. And I thought, I've never heard of such a thing, which I just unwrapped it because I finished You Exist Too Much. And it's the fifth wave, which I had heard of, but I had never read. And I think there's a movie that I could be wrong. And so yeah. So it was fun though, because I just like looked at kind of the bylines and then picked that out. But I wasn't sure where this novel was going. from the beginning, and then you kind of quickly realize, and just the lead character who is in a relationship but is like also cheating on this woman, and then she goes across west, and then the woman that she's in a relationship with cut ties with her because she was able to look at her emails to some of these other people, and the lead character realizes that she's a love addict and goes to a facility with other addicts, both of like alcohol, drugs, and love addiction as well, and kind of sorts herself out. And so it's her really working on that, as well as trying to heal some generational trauma from her mother, and then her mother's line as well, of what that caused her mother to do to her. So it's, yeah, really interesting, and I like to read other voices as well. So it was great to get a sense of a Palestinian author, writer, writing a Palestinian character, especially in this particular time. So I recommend that as well. And I wouldn't say that it gets political, in case you're worried about that. There are some thoughts about, or like brief mentionings about Israel, in terms of like another character that I think was Jewish, and then she has to go through Israel to get somewhere. Or she isn't. And there's like this whole process, but I felt like that was realistic. So just in case you're worried about, this is controversial. So there you go. Well, this is it. Another quick one. Remember, you can send any questions or comments to backworldoracle@gmail.com. Like the show on Facebook or follow it on Twitter at backworldoracle. Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version, and follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well. Support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. And if you're really missing the audio clips and things, especially the Shipper Spotlight, found out that a lot of those audio clips were muted, then please go to the website and download it. I'm bummed about it. I'm frustrated, and I'm sorry that you couldn't get it from whatever outlet you're using. But if you want to see the clips that Donovan and I shared, then I'd say give that a go and download it from there. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl to Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And until next time, fly on, Babs lovers.